This is wild HOA situations. They wanted control. If you refuse, I add fees. Gloria Jackson was already pointing at my license plate, her voice cutting across my driveway like a drill bit, and the tire clamp was half closed on my front wheel before I even understood what was happening. The tow truck driver stood next to her with a hooked chain rattling in his hand, amber lights flashing behind them both, and I had about 10 seconds to figure out how this became my problem. I am a realtor in Boise, Idaho. I know the preserve at Oak Grove Terrace Association rules better than most residents, because I sell homes here. I moved into this neighborhood 2 years ago thinking the HOA was annoying but manageable. I was wrong. Gloria is the communications director, which means she controls every email blast, every notice, every bit of information that flows through the neighborhood. She also decides who gets warnings and who gets tow authorizations, and today she decided I was her next project. I take care of my disabled sibling at home, and a tow dispute or a gate lockout would turn into a full crisis fast, but Gloria does not care about that. She cares about the rule. Gloria jabbed her finger at my windshield. I do not care what you think, I care what the rule says. Your plate is not registered in the portal. That is all the evidence I need. I looked at the clamp. The metal arm was already pressing against my tire. The driver was waiting for her signal. I pulled out my phone and opened the HOA portal app right there. My plate was in the system. I turned the screen toward her. She did not even glance at it. She said the system updated this morning and my entry was gone, which meant I was in violation, which meant the tow was valid. I asked her when the system updated. She said it does not matter. I asked her if anyone sent a notice about the update. She said notices go out on a rolling basis and it is my responsibility to check. The clamp clicked tighter. I felt my chest clench. I have a strict custody exchange time this afternoon, and if my car gets towed, I miss the handoff and everything spirals. I told Gloria I need 10 minutes to call the management company and verify this. She smiled. She said the tow is already authorized and she can put me on the agenda and keep me there if I want to dispute it officially. That was the line. The boomerang line. I memorized it because I knew it would come back. I stepped between her and the driver. I told him I am not refusing the tow, I am asking for proof of the violation before he hooks my car. He looked at Gloria. She pulled a laminated tow authorization placard from her vest pocket and waved it at me. No readable text, just a bold header and some logos. She said it was signed this morning by the board president, and it covered any vehicle with an unregistered plate. I asked if I could see the signature. She said no, it is HOA property. I asked if there is a copy of the new parking map she mentioned. She said the map was emailed last week and everyone already got it. I never got that email. I checked my inbox right there. Nothing. She said that is a me problem. Two neighbors stood on the sidewalk about 20 feet away, whispering and pointing at the chalk marks the driver had made by my tires. The whole thing felt staged, like Gloria had been waiting for an excuse. I asked the driver if he could give me 5 minutes to pull up my registration confirmation. He said he gets paid per tow and he is on a schedule. Gloria cut in and said if I delay him, she will add obstruction fees. I had no idea what obstruction fees were. She said they are in the updated rules. I let her talk, because every word was helping me. I was recording audio on my phone in my pocket. I work in real estate and I have seen HOA disputes destroy home sales, so I keep records. I keep timestamps. I keep emails. I keep screenshots. Gloria does not know that about me yet, but she is about to learn. I told the driver I would pay the release fee if he would unlock the clamp and let me move my car to the street while I sort this out. He said the fee is $200. I said fine. Gloria said no. She said the vehicle stays immobilized until the tow is complete or the violation is resolved through the proper channels. I asked what the proper channels are. She said I file a dispute form, wait for a hearing date, and attend the hearing. I asked how long that takes. She said usually 2 to 4 weeks. My sibling needs me home by 3 today for a medical appointment. If my car is towed, I miss the exchange and I lose the entire week. I told Gloria that. She said personal circumstances are not a valid defense against a rule violation. I asked if there is an emergency waiver process. She said no. I asked if I can speak to the board president. She said the president is out of town and she is handling enforcement this week. That explained everything. Gloria pulled out a coffee cup from her car. Her hand was shaking slightly, which told me she was nervous under the confidence. She took a sip and then said the tow truck can proceed. I asked the driver if he had a business card. He handed me one. I took a photo of his license plate and his truck number. Gloria stepped closer and said photographing vendors is harassment. I said photographing a vehicle in my driveway is documentation. She said she will add that to my file. I said great, please do. The driver hooked the chain under my front axle. The rattle was loud and metallic, and I felt every click in my teeth. I asked him if he had a signed work order. He said Gloria gave him the authorization. I asked if I could see it. He said he does not carry copies. I asked if he could call his dispatch and confirm the order. He said dispatch does not take calls during active jobs. I asked for his company name. He pointed to the logo on his truck door. I took another photo. Gloria said that is 2 counts of vendor harassment now. I told Gloria I am not harassing anyone. I am exercising my right to document a disputed action on my property. She said my property ends at the driveway and the street is HOA common area, so the tow truck is not on my property. I said the clamp is on my tire and my car is on my driveway. She said the clamp is enforcement equipment and it belongs to the HOA vendor. I said that is the most absurd thing I have ever heard. She said if I keep arguing, she will call the police for obstruction. I told her to go ahead. She did not move. The driver climbed into his cab and started the hydraulic lift. My front wheels came off the ground about 6 inches. I told him to stop. He said the lift is already engaged and stopping mid-tow can damage the transmission. I said I will pay the full fee right now if he puts it down. Gloria stepped between me and the truck. She said the fee is not the issue, the violation is the issue, and paying a fee does not resolve a violation. I asked what resolves a violation. She said compliance and a signed acknowledgement form. I asked where I get the form. She said it is on the portal. I opened the portal. There was no form. I showed her. She said it is under the enforcement tab. There was no enforcement tab. She said I must not have access yet because my account is flagged. I asked why my account is flagged. She said because of the violation. That was when I realized this was a loop, a deliberate loop. Gloria had designed a system where every step required the previous step to be completed first, and the first step was impossible. I have seen this tactic before in HOA disputes. It is a stall. It is a way to rack up fees and force compliance through exhaustion. I was not going to let that happen. I called the management company. The phone rang 4 times and then went to voicemail. I left a message with my address, the claim number on the tow placard Gloria showed me, and a request for immediate callback. I said I am being towed under a disputed violation and I need verification of the authorization. I hung up and looked at Gloria. She was smiling again. She said management does not handle enforcement calls and they will refer me back to the board. I said we will see. The driver lowered the lift slightly and then raised it again. The whole car rocked. I asked him what he was doing. He said he was securing the load. I asked if he needed to rock it that hard. He said it is standard procedure. Gloria said if I keep interfering, she will add another fee. I asked what fee. She said interference with vendor operations. I asked if that is a real fee. She said it is in the updated enforcement guidelines. I asked to see the guidelines. She said they are not public yet. I said, then how am I supposed to follow them? She said ignorance is not a defense. If you are enjoying this HOA nightmare, smash that like button and subscribe for more insane neighborhood drama. I looked at the neighbors. One of them was holding up a phone, filming. I waved. The neighbor lowered the phone and walked away. Gloria saw that, and her smile faded a little. She said recording without consent is illegal. I said we are in a public driveway, and Idaho is a one-party consent state. She said the driveway is private property. I said it is my private property. She said the tow is happening on HOA authority, so the property is under HOA jurisdiction during enforcement. I said that is not how property law works. She said she is not a lawyer, and neither am I. I said I am a realtor, and I know exactly how property law works in this state. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my real estate agent friend, Sam. He said he heard from another neighbor that Gloria was planning a tow blitz this week and targeting anyone she considers non-compliant. He said she has been pressuring neighbors to sign complaints and calling it community support. He said if I have any documentation, I should bring it to the next board meeting because the management company is already frustrated with her. I texted him back and said I have documentation, and I am recording right now. He said good, because Gloria has been doing this for months and nobody has pushed back hard enough yet. I looked up at Gloria. I said I just got a very interesting text. She said I am wasting everyone's time. I said I think I am going to file a formal complaint against you with the management company for harassment and procedural abuse. Her face went tight. She said complaints require a signed form and a hearing request. I said I will file both. She said the next hearing is in 3 weeks. I said that is fine, I have time. She said the fees will keep accruing until the hearing. I said I am not paying fees for a fabricated violation. She said refusing to pay fees is a separate violation. I said we can add that to the complaint too. The driver released the hydraulic lift and my car dropped back to the driveway. He climbed out and said he got a call from dispatch and they want him to hold the tow until the management company confirms the authorization. Gloria spun around. She said the authorization is already confirmed. He said dispatch said there is a discrepancy in the paperwork and they need to verify before proceeding. Gloria pulled out her phone and started typing furiously. I asked the driver who called dispatch. He said he does not know. Someone from the HOA management office. Gloria said that is impossible because management does not intervene in active enforcement. The driver shrugged and started unhooking the chain. Gloria turned to me. She said, "This is not over." I said, "I agree." She said, "I still have a violation and I still need to resolve it through the proper channels." I said, "I will resolve it by proving the violation is fake." She said, "The violation is documented and verified." I said, "We will see what the management company says." She said, "The management company does not overrule the board." I said, "The management company enforces the governing documents, and if the board is violating the governing documents, the management company has a fiduciary duty to intervene." She said, "I do not know what I am talking about." I said, "I sell homes in this neighborhood, and I read the CC and Rs every time I write a contract, so I know exactly what I am talking about." The driver finished unhooking the chain and walked back to his truck. He said he is logging the job as incomplete pending authorization review. Gloria said she wants his supervisor's number. He said it is on the truck. She took a photo. He drove away. The amber lights disappeared around the corner. Gloria and I stood in the driveway. The tire clamp was still on my wheel. I pointed at it. I said, I want that removed. She said the clamp stays until the violation is resolved. I said the tow is canceled, so the clamp is no longer valid. She said the clamp is a separate enforcement tool and it is valid until I submit the acknowledgement form. I said there is no acknowledgement form on the portal. She said, that is my problem. I pulled out my phone and called the non-emergency police line. Gloria's eyes went wide. She said calling the police for an HOA matter is a waste of resources. I said calling the police for a property dispute where someone refuses to remove a device from my car is exactly what the non-emergency line is for. The dispatcher answered. I explained the situation. The dispatcher said an officer would come by within the hour. Gloria said she is leaving. I said the officer will want to speak to you. She said she does not have to stay. I said the clamp belongs to the HOA vendor and you authorized it, so if you leave I will tell the officer you abandoned property on my vehicle and I want it removed as abandoned property. She stayed. We waited. The air was so still I could hear Gloria breathing. She pulled out her phone and made a call. She said she needed the board president to call her back immediately. She hung up and looked at me. She said, this is going to cost me a lot more than a tow fee. I said, I do not think it is. She said the board can levy fines for non-compliance, and the fines compound daily. I said the board can levy fines for legitimate violations, and this is not a legitimate violation. She said the board determines what is legitimate. I said the governing documents determine what is legitimate, and the board has to follow the governing documents. She said, I am not a lawyer. I said, neither are you. The officer arrived 30 minutes later. He parked on the street and walked up. I explained the situation. Gloria interrupted and said I was interfering with a valid HOA enforcement action. The officer asked to see the authorization. Gloria showed him the placard. He looked at it and said it does not have a case number or a specific vehicle description. He asked if there is a signed work order. Gloria said the work order is with the tow company. He asked if she has a copy. She said no. He asked if the clamp is HOA property. She said it is vendor property. He asked if the vendor is still on site. She said no. He looked at me. He said the clamp is on your car and the person who authorized it does not have documentation and the vendor is not here, so this is a civil dispute and I cannot force removal, but I can document the complaint. I said that is fine. He wrote up a report number and gave me a copy. He told Gloria the clamp needs to come off within 24 hours or I can file for removal as abandoned property. Gloria said the clamp is not abandoned. He said if the vendor does not return to remove it and you do not provide documentation, it will be treated as abandoned. He left. Gloria's phone rang. She answered. She listened. Her face went pale. She hung up and said the board president wants to meet with me and her tomorrow morning at the management company office. I said I will be there. She said the meeting is mandatory. I said I already said I will be there. She walked to her car and drove away. The clamp stayed on my wheel. I called Sam. I told him what happened. He said he knows a locksmith who can remove clamps if I need it. I said I want to leave it on for now because it is evidence. He laughed and said I am playing this exactly right. I went inside and pulled up my security camera footage. I have cameras covering my driveway and the street. I scrolled back to this morning. At 6:43, Gloria walked up my driveway with a clipboard. She took photos of my car and my license plate. She made notes. At 7:15, the tow truck arrived. Gloria met the driver on the street and handed him something. They talked for 3 minutes. Then they walked up my driveway together. The driver put the clamp on my wheel. Then Gloria knocked on my door. I checked the timestamp on my phone. She knocked at 7:21. I answered at 7:22. That was when she started yelling. The whole thing was premeditated. She planned the tow before she even spoke to me. I exported the footage and saved it to 3 locations. I also pulled up my email. I searched for any message from the HOA about a parking map update or a portal registration requirement. Nothing. I searched for any email from Gloria in the last 6 months. I found 12 messages. 10 were neighborhood newsletters. 1 was a reminder about trash pickup. 1 was a notice about a board meeting I attended. None mentioned parking enforcement changes. I took screenshots of everything. I checked the HOA portal again. I clicked through every tab. There was no enforcement section. There was no acknowledgement form. There was no updated parking map. There was a section for vehicle registration, and my car was listed with the correct plate number and a green check mark next to it. The registration date was 6 months ago. I took a screenshot of that too. I checked the document library. The most recent parking policy was from 2 years ago. It did not mention portal registration or tow authorizations. It said guest parking required a pass and resident parking required a visible decal or plate registration. I had plate registration. I took another screenshot. I called Sam back. I asked him if he knew anyone at the management company. He said he knows the property manager. I asked if he could set up a meeting for me before the board meeting tomorrow. He said he would try. He called me back 10 minutes later and said the property manager would meet me at 8 in the morning, 1 hour before the board meeting. I said, perfect. That night I went through every email, every notice, every document I had from the HOA. I built a timeline. I built a violation log. I noted every inconsistency. I also pulled the county records for the preserve at Oak Grove Terrace Association. The HOA was managed by a company called Integrated Community Services. The board president was listed as Roger Finch. The treasurer was listed as Dana Cole. Gloria Jackson was listed as communications director, which is not a board position. That meant she had no enforcement authority unless the board delegated it in writing. I searched the HOA meeting minutes. There was no delegation resolution. Gloria was acting without authority. I did not sleep much. I kept thinking about the clamp on my wheel and the smug look on Gloria's face and the way she said she could put me on the agenda and keep me there. I thought about my sibling and the custody exchange and the medical appointment and how close I came to losing the entire week because Gloria wanted to flex. I thought about the other neighbors Sam mentioned, the ones who got pressured into signing complaints, the ones who did not push back. I thought about how many people Gloria had done this to, and how many people just paid the fees and moved on, because fighting an HOA is exhausting and expensive, and most people do not have the time or the records or the energy. I had all 3. I was going to use them. I woke up at 6. I printed everything. I put it in a binder with tabs. I put the security camera footage on a USB drive. I put the police report in the front pocket. I put the binder in a folder. I drove to the management company office. I got there at 7:50. The property manager met me in the lobby. His name was Tom. He looked tired. He said he heard about the tow incident and he wanted to hear my side before the board meeting. I handed him the binder. He flipped through it. He stopped on the security camera timestamps. He said, "This is very thorough." I said, "I keep records." He said Gloria has been a problem for a while. He said she sends emails without board approval, and she makes enforcement decisions without consulting the management company, and she has been pressuring neighbors to file complaints as a way to build cases for fines. He said the board president knows about it, but he has been out of town a lot and he trusts Gloria to handle communications. I asked if the board delegated enforcement authority to her. He said no. I asked if she is supposed to be issuing tow authorizations. He said no. I asked if the tow company is an approved HOA vendor. He said he does not know, he would have to check the contract. I said I think you should check the contract. He made a call. He asked someone to pull the vendor list. He waited. He said the tow company is not on the approved vendor list. He said Gloria contracted with them directly without board approval. I asked if that is a problem. He said it is a huge problem. He said unapproved vendors create liability issues, and the HOA insurance does not cover them. He said if something had gone wrong during the tow, the HOA could have been sued, and the insurance would not have paid. He looked at me. He said, "You just saved us a major lawsuit." I said, "I just wanted my car back." Tom said he is going to recommend the board terminate the vendor contract immediately and issue a formal apology to me. I said, "I appreciate that, but I want more." I said, "I want a policy clarification that destroys her favorite tactic." He asked what I mean. I said, "Gloria uses procedural loops to trap people. She creates violations that require forms that do not exist, and hearings that are not scheduled, and portal access that is not granted. She uses the system as a weapon. I want the board to pass a resolution that requires every enforcement action to include a clear written notice with a specific violation reference, a specific timeline, and a specific remedy, and if the HOA cannot provide all three, the enforcement is void." He said that is a good idea. He said he will draft the resolution and present it to the board today. The board meeting started at 9. Roger Finch was there. Dana Cole was there. Gloria was there. Tom was there. I was there. Roger opened the meeting and said he understood there was an enforcement issue. Gloria started talking. She said I interfered with a valid tow and I harassed the vendor and I refused to comply with parking policy. Roger asked if she had documentation. She said she had the tow authorization placard and photos of my car. Roger asked if she had a signed work order. She said the vendor has the work order. Roger asked if the vendor is an approved vendor. She paused. She said she contracted with them because they were available. Roger said the board did not approve a new vendor. Gloria said she has authority to make operational decisions. Roger said enforcement is not operational. It is governance, and it requires board approval. Tom handed Roger the binder I gave him. Roger flipped through it. He stopped on the security camera footage timestamp summary. He looked at Gloria. He said you went to his property and authorized a tow before you spoke to him. She said the violation was obvious. He said you are not an enforcement officer and you do not have unilateral authority to issue tow authorizations. She said she was acting in the best interest of the community. He said you were acting outside your role. He looked at me. He said I apologize for this and the board will address it. Gloria stood up. She said I do not care what you think. I care what the rule says. And the rule says unregistered vehicles can be towed. Roger said his vehicle is registered. She said the system updated and his registration was removed. Roger asked who updated the system. She said the management company updates the system. Tom said the management company did not update the system and the registration database shows his car has been continuously registered for 6 months. Gloria said the portal was showing him as unregistered this morning. Tom pulled up the portal on his laptop. He said the portal shows active registration with no flags. Gloria said it must have been a glitch. Roger said if it was a glitch, you should have verified before issuing a tow authorization. Gloria said she did not have time to verify. Roger said then you should not have issued the authorization. Dana spoke up. She said she has received multiple complaints from neighbors about aggressive enforcement and procedural confusion. She said people are afraid to park in their own driveways because they do not know what the rules are. She said Gloria has been sending emails that contradict the governing documents and nobody knows what is official anymore. Roger said that is a serious problem. Gloria said she is just enforcing the rules. Dana said you are making up rules. Gloria said she is interpreting the rules. Dana said interpretation is the board's job, not yours. I raised my hand. Roger nodded at me. I said, I have one more thing. I pulled out a printed email. I said, this is an internal note from the management company that was accidentally copied to me on a bulk email last month. The note was from Tom to Roger. It said Gloria had requested a list of residents with parking violations and Tom had replied that there were no current violations, and Gloria had replied that she would create violations if necessary to justify increased enforcement. I handed the email to Roger. He read it. His face went red. He looked at Gloria. He said, "Did you write this?" She said she does not remember. He said, "This email says you plan to fabricate violations." She said that is taken out of context. He said, "What context makes that acceptable?" She did not answer. Roger closed the binder. He said the board is voting right now to remove Gloria from the communications director role and to freeze all enforcement actions pending a full policy rewrite. Dana said she seconds the motion. Roger said all in favor. Dana said aye. A third board member I did not recognize said aye. Roger said the motion passes. Gloria said you cannot do that. Roger said we just did. Gloria said she will fight this. Roger said you are welcome to request a hearing, but you no longer have any authority to send emails or issue enforcement actions effective immediately. Gloria stood up and walked out. She slammed the door. Roger looked at me. He said, "I am very sorry this happened and the board will issue a formal apology letter and remove any fees or violations from your account." He said the board is also going to pass the resolution Tom drafted requiring clear written notice for all enforcement actions. He said the resolution will be posted on the portal by the end of the week. I said, "Thank you." He said, "Thank you for keeping records and standing up. Because if you had not pushed back, we would not have known how bad this had gotten." Dana said she wants to set up a neighborhood meeting to clarify the parking rules and answer questions. Roger said that is a good idea. Tom said he will organize it. I left the meeting and walked to my car. The tire clamp was gone. I called the tow company. They said they picked it up this morning on orders from the management company. I asked if there was a fee. They said no, the management company paid the removal fee as part of the contract termination. I hung up and sat in my car for a minute. I felt the tension drain out of my shoulders. I had won. Not just for me. For every neighbor who had been too scared or too tired to fight back. For every person who paid a bogus fee because they did not know they could say no. For every family that got trapped in Gloria's procedural loops and gave up because the system was designed to make them give up. I drove home. Sam called. He said he heard the board fired Gloria and he wanted to know what happened. I told him the whole story. He said, "I am a legend in the neighborhood now." I said, "I just wanted to park in my own driveway." He said, "You did more than that. You broke the enforcement machine." I said, "Good." 2 weeks later, the neighborhood meeting happened. Roger and Dana and Tom presented the new enforcement policy. Every violation notice now had to include a specific rule citation, a specific timeline, a specific remedy, and a specific appeal process. If any of those 4 things were missing, the violation was void. No more loops, no more traps, no more enforcement without documentation. A dozen neighbors asked questions. Most of them were about parking. Roger said the board is revising the parking policy to make it simpler and clearer, and they are going to post a map on the portal with photos of every approved parking zone. Dana said they are also going to require all enforcement vendors to be approved by the board and bonded by the HOA insurance. Tom said the management company is implementing a complaint tracking system so residents can see the status of any enforcement action in real time. After the meeting, I handed out printed copies of the new enforcement policy to neighbors in the parking lot. One woman said she had been fined 3 times for violations she never understood, and she never knew she could fight them. I told her she could request a refund under the new policy. She hugged me. Another neighbor said he had been afraid to have guests over because Gloria kept threatening to tow guest vehicles. I said guest parking is protected under the new rules as long as the guest registers at the gate. He said thank you. Gloria pulled into the parking lot while I was handing out packets. She parked far away from the group. She got out of her car and saw me. She saw the neighbors around me. She saw the packets. Her face went tight. She walked toward us. A neighbor stepped between her and me. The neighbor said Gloria is not welcome here anymore. Gloria said this is a public HOA meeting. The neighbor said the meeting is over and you are no longer the communications director, so you have no business being here. Gloria said she is still a resident. The neighbor said then go home. Gloria looked at me. She said this is not over. I said yes it is. She said she will appeal the board decision. I said you are welcome to try. She said she has friends on the board. I said Roger and Dana both voted to remove you. She said she will go to the state HOA ombudsman. I said the ombudsman will laugh at you when they see the email where you said you would create violations if necessary. Her face went pale. She said that email was confidential. I said it was sent to me by accident and it is now part of the board record. She said I had no right to share it. I said I shared it with the board during an official meeting about your conduct, which is exactly what I had the right to do. She said she will sue me for defamation. I said truth is an absolute defense against defamation, and you wrote the email, so it is your own words. She said I twisted her words. I said I read them verbatim in front of witnesses. She said this whole thing is a conspiracy. I said the only conspiracy here is the one you ran where you pressured neighbors to sign complaints and called it community support. Another neighbor stepped forward. He said Gloria tried to get him to sign a complaint against his own neighbor over a barbecue grill on a patio. He said she told him if he did not sign, she would find a violation on his property. He said he signed because he was scared and he regrets it. He looked at Gloria. He said, I am withdrawing my complaint and I am filing a counter-complaint against you for coercion. Gloria said, that is slander. He said it is testimony. 2 more neighbors said they had similar experiences. Gloria looked around. The whole group was staring at her. She turned and walked back to her car. She drove away fast. We watched her go. Someone started clapping. Then everyone was clapping. I did not feel like a hero. I felt like someone who did what he had to do because nobody else could. The board meeting minutes were posted the next week. The resolution passed unanimously. The new enforcement policy went into effect immediately. The HOA froze enforcement pending a policy rewrite. Gloria's resignation letter was posted in the minutes. She claimed she was resigning for personal reasons. Roger added a note that said the board accepted her resignation and thanked her for her service and wished her well. It was polite and final. The neighborhood moved on. 3 months later, I ran into Tom at a coffee shop. He said the new enforcement policy had cut complaints by 70%. He said residents felt safer and more informed. He said the board hired a compliance auditor to review all enforcement actions from the last 2 years, and they found 43 violations that were improperly issued. He said the HOA refunded over $30,000 in fees. I said that is a lot of money. He said it is a lot of families who got their money back because you kept records and stood up. I said I just wanted my car back. He said you got a lot more than that. I still live in the preserve at Oak Grove Terrace. I still work as a realtor. I still keep records. I keep timestamps. I keep emails. I keep screenshots. I tell every buyer who looks at a home in this neighborhood about the new enforcement policy and how it came to be. I tell them about Gloria and the tire clamp and the tow truck and the loop. I tell them about the security camera footage and the email and the board meeting. I tell them that HOAs are only as good as the people who run them and the people who hold them accountable. I tell them that if they ever get a violation notice, they should read it carefully and ask questions and keep records, and not be afraid to say no when something does not make sense. Most of them nod and thank me. A few of them ask if I will be their agent. I always say yes. I still see neighbors from that night in the parking lot. They wave. They smile. One of them baked me cookies. Another one invited me to a barbecue. A third one asked me to help him dispute a fine from a different HOA in a different neighborhood. I said I am not a lawyer, but I can show you how to keep records and build a timeline and ask the right questions. He said that is enough. I helped him. He won. The cycle continues. Karen's smug smile vanishes when the room turns on her. That moment in the board meeting when Roger read the email out loud and her face went pale and she tried to say it was out of context and nobody believed her. That was the moment. That was the karma. Her own words, her own plan, her own loop turned back on her. She spent months building a system to trap people, and the system trapped her instead. The payback vector was a policy clarification that destroys her favorite tactic. The new enforcement resolution made procedural loops illegal. Every enforcement action now requires documentation and a clear remedy. No more traps. No more delays. No more made-up forms and missing hearings and flagged accounts. Gloria built her power on confusion and gatekeeping, and the board took it away with one vote. The HOA froze enforcement pending a policy rewrite. No new fines, no new tows, no new violations until the rules were clear and fair. That freeze gave the neighborhood breathing room. It gave people time to ask questions and get answers and feel safe in their own homes again. It gave the board time to rebuild trust. It worked. Karen was outvoted so hard the room laughed. Not literally laughed, but close. When Roger called the vote to remove her and Dana seconded it immediately, and the third board member said aye without hesitation, the energy in the room shifted. Gloria tried to say they could not do that, and Roger said we just did, and you could feel the relief. You could feel the neighbors outside the meeting room exhaling. You could feel the weight lift. Gloria lost her power in 30 seconds, and she knew it, and everyone else knew it, and there was nothing she could do. I think about that tire clamp sometimes. I think about the rattle of the tow hook chain and the way Gloria held her coffee cup with a shaking hand, and the way the neighbors whispered and pointed. I think about the moment I decided to record everything and call the police and build the timeline and bring the binder to Tom. I think about how close I came to just paying the fee and moving on because fighting felt impossible. I think about how many people do pay the fee and move on because they do not have the time or the records or the energy or the support. I think about how Gloria counted on that. I think about how she built a whole enforcement empire on exhaustion and fear and procedural confusion. I think about how satisfying it was to take that empire apart piece by piece, using her own rules and her own words and her own arrogance. I also think about the neighborhood now. The new parking map is clear. The new enforcement policy is fair. The new complaint tracking system is transparent. People park in their driveways without fear. People have guests over without worrying about tow trucks. People read violation notices and understand them and know how to appeal them. The HOA is still annoying sometimes because HOAs are always annoying. But it is not weaponized anymore. It is not a trap. It is just a set of rules that everyone follows and everyone understands. That is all it was ever supposed to be. I got a letter last month from a neighbor I had never met. She said she bought her house 2 years ago, and she paid over $1,000 in parking fines because Gloria told her the guest pass system was broken, and she had to pay a fee every time a guest visited. She said she did not know she could fight it. She said she read the new enforcement policy and she requested a refund, and the board approved it. She said she got her money back. She said thank you for standing up because she did not know she could. I wrote her back and said you could have stood up too. You just did not know it yet, and now you do. She said she will remember that. I believe her. The preserve at Oak Grove Terrace is a place where everything requires a form and the form requires another form. That has not changed. What changed is that now the forms exist and they are posted on the portal, and they are clear and they are fair. What changed is that now the people who enforce the forms have to follow the same rules as everyone else. What changed is that now when someone like Gloria tries to build a procedural loop and trap people inside it, there is a policy and a process and a record that stops her. What changed is that now people know they can say no. That is enough. Until next time, thanks for watching.